Did you know that you may have a silent killer in your home? Well, good morning. This is Slav Flinsky Homes. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we will be talking about radon gas. Radon, according to the American Lung Association, is the second leading cause of lung cancer. Did you know that? I've been aware of radon for many years, being a real estate agent, and I did not know, even though I knew there was a connection between lung cancer and radon, that it was the second leading cause right behind smoking. So today we're going to bring on Elliot Wall from Elliot and Associates, Radon Mitigation. They are true professionals. I've dealt with many different radon mitigation companies, and many others are hacks compared to Elliot and Associates. They are very knowledgeable, not only in mitigation, but in the subject of radon. So very excited to get this show on the road. Let's go. Well, Elliot, thank you for joining us today on this important topic of radon and radon mitigation. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, and thank you very much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited.
Oh, I'm excited to have you. Ever since I've met you and you're, dealt with your company, I really, and we'll talk more about how you separate yourselves from other mitigation companies, but you are true professionals and really have great knowledge, not only on the proper way of mitigating a home of radon, but just on the subject of radon itself. So very excited. As I mentioned in the intro, I always knew there was a connection between radon gas exposure and lung cancer. However, I was very surprised to find out that, according to American Lung Association, that it is the second leading cause of lung cancer, which just blew me away. So I'm excited to talk to you about this and maybe learn more about radon. One of the things, we always assume, being in the industry, whether you're, with radon mitigation, me in real estate, that everybody knows what we know. And time and time again, especially with first-time home buyers and even some homeowners that are putting their home on the market, they haven't even heard of radon gas and the importance of it. Do you run into that as well, that there's such little knowledge, even though it is the second leading cause of lung cancer?
Oh, I frequently come across that, and probably the biggest issue is because you can't see it, taste it, or smell it. You can't feel it, so you don't know it's there.
Right.
And so that's probably number one reason why it's often missed.
Yeah. Out of sight, out of mind. So let's start from the beginning. What is radon gas? Where does it come from?
Well, radon gas comes from the breakdown of uranium. And the uranium, one of the funny facts about that is uranium is water soluble. So as the groundwater moves, the uranium deposits move as well. So that's why the EPA suggests you test your house every 2 years, because if you do a test one time and 2 years later, you can have totally different results. So that's why they would recommend testing your house every two years at minimum.
Sure. And to that example, I had a client bought a home in Naperville. When they bought it, it tested negative for radon. And when I was talking to them about radon, when we were listing the home 3 years later, they said, "Oh yeah, we're not going to worry about it. We'll be fine because it tested negative." And to their surprise, when the home buyers did a radon test, it tested positive just 3 years later, which again goes to what you're saying, that it does change things, move under the surface of our ground, and it changes the results. What are some of the misconceptions about radon that you come across?
Well, some of them, like only older homes have radon, or only newer homes have radon. Only homes with basements have radon issues. So, I had one realtor who was saying, "Hey, don't test your house because it has a crawl space. You don't have an issue." And so that was misinformation. So any house that touches the ground is its footprint, and that's the pathway. So slab on grade, basements, crawl spaces, single family, multifamily. It doesn't matter. Radon does not discriminate. It goes into any house at any time.
Absolutely. And I've had experience where either with home buyers or home sellers, townhomes on a slab, condos on the first floor, right? It tests positive. And so that is very important to know that it doesn't matter. Radon could be anywhere and doesn't, not only in a single family home, and it could be in townhomes and condos. So I have a question on that point, and I don't know if you have the answer to this. When we sit down with a seller, they have to fill out a radon disclosure form. And if you're in a condo under a third floor story, you also have to fill out that radon disclosure. So, second floor condos do. Have you ever had a situation where you had a condo that you were asked to mitigate that was above ground level?
Oh, yes, this year, 3 homes, Woodridge and 2 in Chicago, where the second floor condo was being tested. It was being sold and tested and failed. So they then tested the first floor, and all those units failed. So um, it, I've seen homes second floor. I've never seen a third floor, but anything's possible. That's why you would test it in multiple levels. Like if we're doing a testing for multifamily that is getting some HUD funding, they require 10% of every upper floor to be tested for radon because of that fact.
Yeah, and that's really fascinating because I even myself did not think that that would be an issue above, the first level. Because I know in a single family home, of course, we test the basement. If you have a crawl space, it's the space above the crawl space, and I've always assumed that once it's higher you get, the less likely that radon can be there. And in a little bit, we'll talk about how the mitigation of a second floor condo is different from a single family home. Now, you mentioned that it is water soluble. Can radon be present in water if you have a well?
Oh yes. So the EPA a long time ago, they tried to do a risk reduction, and they said, well, you'll get greater risk reduction if you control the radon in air than you would get radon in water. So they kind of dropped their threshold. And before, the EPA had a threshold for radon in water at 300 picocuries. So they don't basically enforce that because they see greater risk reduction in controlling the radon in air. So, so you have radon. I would test any home that had a well that was a single source. Even if it came from the ground, maybe you could
Mhm.
even have a large community that goes off of one well that's from the ground. Like Lake Michigan, you're not going to have any problems if it's a surface water. So, but anything comes from the ground, definitely would recommend testing for.
Wow. So, are you aware of how you would handle radon levels in water?
Oh yes, there's different systems. Basically, they aerate the. That's how you get radon out of water. You would aerate it, disturb it, stir it up, and then it would be released. And then you have to repressurize the water. Um, so it's definitely fixable. Any radon issue is fixable.
Yeah, that's important, especially for homeowners and home buyers, not to freak out because it's something that occurs naturally and it can be handled. So, radon starts from below the surface. How does it get inside a home?
Well, the reason radon comes in is every house, unless it has a mechanical HVAC system pouring in fresh air in the building, is under a slight negative pressure. It's like a vacuum sitting on the ground. So, because the home is under negative pressure, it's pulling that radon gas from anywhere it touches the ground. So, again, like with a house that has a basement, attached garage, and a crawl space, there's 3 areas in which the radon's coming in: the basement, through the basement floor, through the crawl space. Another area is the garage, through the foundation wall, because radon travels through concrete like wind through a screen. Concrete's 30% airspace. So that's where at times if you don't know how to all those different sources, you may have a little bit more difficulty passing a test the first time around.
Okay, great. And speaking of tests, how does somebody test for radon? What's
Well,
involved?
if you're testing, there's multiple types of testing devices. There's one right here, and you can get the ones like, for example, let's see, in a hardware store, you can buy ones for like $130 to like 300, and you can monitor. These are for homeowner use only, not basically for a radon professional. Licensed professional wouldn't use those, but they're accurate. They're great. So you would place those in different footprints of the property, basement and a room above the crawl. But so this is considered like a continuous radon monitor. And there's other ones that are a disposable type that you can buy again from the hardware store or get from the Department of Public Health. And those are a one-time usage, and then you send it away to the laboratory, and then the
Mhm.
laboratory would send you results.
Yeah, great. And the digital one that you just showed, how accurate is that?
I've ran these against my professional monitors that we have calibrated. They're dead on, within any percent of error. So I trust these. I love these because these give buyers confidence. If they were asking, hey, how high is the radon after someone mitigates, this would give people that confidence that the house is always safe.
Yeah, great. So now does that take just a continuous reading or does that give you an average over time? Because I know when home inspectors, radon inspectors test a home with the digital monitors, it's a 48-hour test and it takes an average of the 48 hours. And then sometimes when you read the report of the readings, there may be some points in there where it's above the threshold of 4.1, but overall it passes.
Mhm.
So, um, does that monitor that you show have an average, or does it just show
Oh
a
yeah, this gives
continuous reading?
average. It gives weekly,
Oh,
and some of the ones that are more expensive, the $200 to $300 range, that you can actually, it's Wi-Fi based, and it'll show you a chart of what your radon levels are for a week, a month, a year, and you can see the different radon levels. And that's important because at different times of the year, your radon levels may be higher. Like right now
mhm,
in Illinois, we're having that drought, and radon levels tend to go higher when the soil is drier. And in some homes, the radon levels are higher in the winter time than they
hmm.
are in the summer. But some homes are different where they're higher in the summer than winter. So that's why you'd always test. So because I say a house is like a box of chocolate. We don't know what you get until you take that bite, till you do that test.
Okay, great. So I have a question that came in from John and want to know if there's certain areas of the country that you're aware of that affect radon more. Meaning, are there certain areas that are more prevalent to having radon? According to the information I got from the American Lung Association, on average in America, 1 in 15 homes will test positive, which is about 7%. Now, in the area that we in DuPage County, I heard that it's more like 42%. Uh, what really affects radon in different areas of the country?
Well, the radon, again, if you want to blame where radon came from, you could say we can blame the ice age. And as the ice age, and it churned out the soil, bringing uranium closer to the top.
Hmm.
So, but the map if someone looks at a map and it says, oh, hey, this area has low probability of having radon, it's kind of misleading. You would still test it. It's just the odds that you won't have it. Like, for example, in the city of Chicago, a lot of people, as you get closer to the Lake Michigan, you have less chances for radon. But we do a lot of work in Chicago. And the more you look for something, the more you're going to find.
Right.
So, and as you get closer to the Fox River, the tendencies are even increased even more. So again, you just test every single house because it just may not follow that pattern that we hope that's predicted, but there's always could be a change.
Yeah, great. I always tell my sellers, in the listing consultation about radon and the possibility of it coming up. Today, in my experience, almost every single homeowner will test for radon along with the regular home inspection. And I tell them it's about a 50-50 chance that your home is going to test positive. And it may not be a bad idea to, test it right away before it goes on the market, because if it's there, it's there. Nothing we could do about it. So why not find out about it now? And if it tests positive, have it mitigated right away. And this, I feel, it will take some of the worry away from buyers. Because in my experience, when I'm going through a home with buyers and there's a radon mitigation system in there, even if they don't know anything about radon, I explain what that is, what it's doing, and it doesn't even seem to bother them or phase them. However, after a home inspection, if a home tests positive for radon, it seems to be more concern by the home buyer. For one reason is, this is a big transaction, right? This is a big financial obligation, especially if you're a first-time home buyer. And there's a lot of anxiety, maybe a little bit of worry whether this is the right decision. So it, I think, could really benefit sellers from having buyers possibly back out of a sale when a positive test comes from the home inspection.
I I think it's a great idea because if you have a system that's operating a radon mitigation system, and you can have a 1-2 punch, you can again give that buyer instant satisfaction that the radon levels are low, and one less thing to worry about to help seal the deal, give them that confidence. So I really am a believer in what you said. I say test it before, fix it before you list it. And if you have high levels of radon, you're going to have to deal with it anyway. And
Exactly.
I agree. I had buyers that one just recently. She's walked, and the levels were I think 4.1 or 4.2, and she says I'm walking, and I try to reach out to her to help answer any of your questions. She goes, nope, I'm not buying this house. I'm not buying it. Well, if they would have fixed it ahead of time, the deal would have been done.
Right. Right. Exactly. Especially today with the um atmosphere that we have with buyers. They're really forced to make a quick decision just because of the low amount of homes available to sell. And so there's a lot of things going through their mind, especially, was that the right decision? So the more things we take off of that plate, off of that worry plate, the better chance of that home moving forward. Now, let's talk about the acceptable levels of radon by the EPA. And if it tests above that, what is the process of mitigation?
Okay, so the most common method of radon mitigation is to install a sub-slab depressurization system, also known as a sub-slab ventilation system. Also, you could say it's also known as a vapor intrusion system. So the history on that is we kind of borrowed or mimicked systems in Canada where they had underground storage tanks that were leaking gasoline, and so those homes would smell like gasoline. So they came out with this system. So we're kind of mimicking that. But so this radon system creates that depressurization. So has to be stronger than the existing pressure that the house creates. Remember, I mentioned the house is under slight negative pressure. So as long as our system creates that force field, say, it captures the radon and it continuously pumps it to the outside. So this radon system should never take any lunch breaks. Doesn't get a vacation. Runs 24/7. So this house is safe. Now, another benefit to the radon system, it helps dry out the underside. And a benefit to that is there's less humidity in the air in the summertime. So your house feels cooler faster, more comfortable faster. So it helps lower your cooling costs. And so it's a twofold on that as well. And then because it reduces moisture, it also has to reduce the potential for mold growth in the wintertime. So it does three separate great things to help indoor air quality.
So when you talk about reduces the humidity on the underside, you're talking about the foundation, correct?
Right. So it captures that air from underneath the ground, and it continuously creates that vacuum, pulling up. It
Mhm.
likes like it works like a groundwater sump pump, but it's moving air rather than water.
Okay, so the radon mitigation systems I've seen, right? It's what a 4 or 6 inch pipe drilled through the concrete slab in inconspicuous area. So what happens? Are we should we be concerned about that radon gas getting pumped from underneath the foundation out into the air?
Well, the system is supposed to exhaust certain minimum requirements so that we don't have what we call reentrainment. So if you open the window or you're out on your backyard enjoying your backyard, you're not being exposed to high levels of radon. So there's our rules that we follow to maintain safe levels and so that people are not being exposed to higher levels than they should be. So the system needs to be installed a proper way.
Got it. What I heard, and you tell me if this is true or this is a misconception, is that radon gas, once it's in the air, has a very short shelf life. So it does dissipate. So not to for people not to worry that all these homes are putting out radon gas into the atmosphere. Is that correct, or is that
Yeah,
wrong?
I would say it's correct. It will dissipate typically in 2 to 3 feet from that your discharge point. So that's why the exhaust is got to be at least 10 feet off the ground because most people are what 6 feet tall. You already have 4 feet of height right there. So all those things have been figured out. And the same thing if you have a two-story building, if you're near a window, you're 2 feet above that window. We go a little bit higher, so there's no doubt that our exhaust pipe is tall enough.
Sounds great. So I have another question. You tell me whether it's true or false. It seems like radon is a big subject today. I know when my wife and I bought our first home in the late 80s, it wasn't even discussed. And then when we bought our home we're in now in 1998, it was discussed but not really, there wasn't really that much importance on it, on having it tested. Has radon gas been around forever, or is this something that's come up recently? And is it true that older homes didn't have as much of an issue because they breathe more? They didn't have higher efficiency windows, doors, wrapping, and the radon gas dissipated more in those homes compared to the homes today that are sealed.
Yeah. So number one, that's a lot. It's a lot of good questions. So yeah, radon's been around ever since the beginning of time, um, and um, and with homes that are built tighter, you allow that radon to build up. So an older house, if you change your windows and you make your house more energy efficient, you're going to save money on your heating and cooling bills, but you're also going to drive up potentially your radon level. So anytime you make a modification, new siding, new windows, more insulation, you're changing your building envelope. So you should also then do another radon test just to see how those changes impacted your overall radon.
Great, yeah, and very important information there. That's what I heard, and I was like, well, that makes sense, but wasn't sure. So I'm glad you clarified that. So once a radon mitigation system is in, is there any kind of maintenance for a homeowner that they have to follow up on a um, monthly or yearly basis?
Well, you would test your house every 2 years, whether you have a radon system or not. So it really, yeah, the EPA says test your house every 2 years. So you're not having a radon system doesn't increase your testing uh, cycle. But if you really wanted to know, and I would recommend that you have one of those monitors I showed again, because it, life is busy and you forget. Well, if I test every 2 years, all of a sudden 2 years goes by or 3 years and you're behind. So that's why I recommend that device. Um, and what was the other part of the question?
As far as follow-up
Oh,
maintenance,
the maintenance. There's no filters. The fan is has a life expectancy and a minimum of 5 years, and it could last longer. My fan in my house, it's an interior system though. That's around 28 years old. Same fan. So that if there was a Guinness Book of World Records, I think my fan would be getting an award right now.
wonderful. So I got a question. So somebody gets a radon system mitigation system put in, and I see this very often when we're looking at homes that have radon mitigation systems. And then I ask when was the last time it was tested, and most of the time they say, well, not since it was installed. So the question is, once you have a mitigation system in place and it's still operating, why would you need to test it? What changes possibly in a home that could bring up the levels of radon, even though you have a mitigation system in there?
Great question. So if your mitigation system, say, let's give an example that you have a basement and an attached garage,
Mhm.
and you test your house, you got the system, everything's fine and dandy. And then all of a sudden with the ground changing, radon movement to a new location. I've had this happen where we had mitigated a house, like 10 years goes by, the people go put the house up for sale. This is a house in Elmhurst. This is one of my first homes that I ever had to put a suction point in the garage slab to lower the radon levels in the basement. So if you design the system and have your uh, control all your footprints, then you're probably not going to have a problem. But most radon systems are being installed during a real estate transaction. So they're not necessarily putting in the top line system and covering all the footprints. They're just putting in their base system, and they're not will necessarily address that garage. So that's why, again, testing is so important, because you would be under that false sense of security thinking, oh, my radon system's good. And also, the fans, they could spin at a lesser RPMs as they wear out, and they're not creating as much negative pressure, and they could lose the radon battle. And maybe during a winter or dead of summer, middle of summer, when you have more stresses on a system, you could see it's not doing as well. So yeah, testing, you got to test your system, and those consumer grade products for the homeowner is been around for like 15 years. I think it's a fantastic. I wish I had that idea.
That's great information. That's great information that I could pass on to my clients as well. That even though they have radon mitigation systems, that they should follow up and keep testing every couple years just to make sure that they are safe. Here's a question that came in. Great question. How much does a radon mitigation system cost on average?
Oh boy. So, and the way prices are changing with plastic costs, wire costs, uh, um, for a one suction point system, a 900 square foot basement, you're probably $1,600 to $2,000. Okay. Now, most homes have bigger basements than that. Or if they have a basement, a crawl space, or a basement addition, or a gravel crawl, um, that really can make a job jump up to quick $3,000, $4,000, $6,000. So
Right.
it's really hard to know what the costs would be. And I just saw an article in the Chicago Tribune, and I wasn't so happy because they were telling costs are like six to $1,200, maybe in 1988 or 1990. But they're so off on their costs, and that really creates problems when that misinformation's out there.
Yeah, exactly. And every home is different. And in my experience, like you said, a crawl space with gravel, number one, you're adding that a second suction point and you have to seal that gravel with a plastic membrane, correct? And so that's more
Yes.
labor and materials that are involved.
So yeah, it adds significant costs, and that's why, I had one lady that just recently in Wheaton, Illinois, where again, I said that your crawl space is. She first thought it was only 500 square feet, and all of a sudden we sent a guy out to measure it, and it was almost 1,200 square feet. So
Mm,
she got a big sticker shock when we
right.
made the price increase, and it's all due to that crawl space. It significantly impacted overall cost.
Yeah. And so in my experience over the years in real estate, I've had different radon mitigation companies referred to me, recommended, and boy, I discovered many of them are just hacks compared to your company. They just drill a hole in the foundation, stick a fan on there, and hope that the levels come down. How does your company differ from many of the others? What do you do that's special and sets you apart?
Okay, so we really put science behind the design. So um, we're going to put some monitoring ports to measure the system, how it's working and functioning. So we collect real time data. So we know before we leave, before we go, that system's working perfectly. And if there's any doubt, we want to be transparent because what's underneath the slab, it will affect the efficiency and overall if we solve the issue. So I rather know about that. And so what we're hoping to find is gravel that provides 30% airspace. That's like pea-sized gravel. We don't want to find water. We don't want to find clay.
Mm,
Those things will impact us. And if you have an addition or some unique characteristics to a house, and I know that brings me to when you and I first met, where another mitigator had an issue and he couldn't solve it, and we did something that I've never done ever since for 37 years. We had to put I think two suction points and an addition that was like maybe 2 foot under in these old window wells. So we
right.
gotta at times we have to be creative and think outside the box to solve issues because radon is sneaky, and that's where our experience and our passion and process come in. Again, it's all an engineered solution that we provide. That's why we're so successful. And but it does take more time, and the cost goes up. And so, in a real estate transaction, we're working with a seller. Money is a very critical decision factor.
Sure, absolutely, and people have to keep in mind, what is the cost of your health, right?
Mhm.
You want to make sure that your health is secured, your family's health is secured, and have it done the right way, and not just leave it to chance by somebody who really is not aware or has knowledgeable on the science of radon and how to properly mitigate it. So this was a lot of great information, Elliot. I really do appreciate it. I learned a few things. I'm sure my viewers have learned several things. How can people get a hold of you and your company?
Okay, well, they can call us at our office at 630 325 8005, or you can email me at ewall@radonillinois.com. And Illinois is spelled out. I'm here to help, to educate, to help any deal that that buyers need confidence or sellers, because I know real estate transactions are stressful and we want to reduce that stress. We want them to have fun.
Fantastic. Well, it was a pleasure having you and having this conversation with you, Elliot. And I will have your contact information in on the recording so that people can just click on the link and get a hold of you. You have a website as well, correct?
Yes. Oh, it's radonillinois.com. There's videos, there's drawings, and everything that can help a person learn more about radon. And Slav, I want to again say that, I really, this in 37 years, I've never done this. And I really highly value that you're a great person, great realtor. You really are trying to get the word out. So thank you. Thank you again for your commitment and doing a great job in educating people in all aspects of real estate.
Well, thank you, Ellie. I do appreciate it, and we strive to keep our clients informed in the entire process of buying and selling a home. And again, thank you very much.
Well,
And I'm sure we're going to be talking soon. So this is
okay,
Slot Flinsky Homes. You have a fantastic day.
thank you.